Hey guys, Mortorcus here. So in this video, we're going to be talking about Diana and the Targon Nightfall package. We've obviously already seen Nocturne and the Shadow Isles Nightfall package, though this one looks a lot better. So I'm going to give you my impressions on what I think of the cards. So let's just hop right into it. And if you aren't aware yet of exactly what Nightfall does, it's after you have already played another card that turn. If it's not the first card you've played in your turn, Nightfall will trigger. So starting off with Diana herself, she is a 2-mana 2/2 with quick attack and Nightfall. Give me Challenger this round. Then her level up condition is you've activated Nightfall 4+ times, and then every time you trigger another Nightfall, she'll get +2 attack and Challenger that round. So Quick Attack and Challenger work really well together. We've seen that in other decks that I've tried out. I've tried pairing Sonic Wave with some Quick Attack units like Zed and Lucian, and it's been very powerful from what I've been able to use it with. So Diana being a Quick Attack Challenger is certainly looking great for her, though the 2/2 stat line isn't too good. But you can dictate your own trade, so as long as their stuff is not too big, there's not like no things to hit in terms of this kind of a thing, then you'll be fine. And even if that is the case, eventually you will level her up, which doesn't look very hard at all for Nightfall triggers across the game. Is not going to be hard. She doesn't need to see them. She can level up in your deck, especially after she's a 3/3. That's a lot better. And every time you give extra attack to her, it's going to make her even better as a Challenger, a Quick Attack unit. So I think she looks really good. She's definitely not a win condition, but as a very powerful Nightfall unit, she certainly fills that mold, and also as a very efficient removal tool for your opponent's minions. And I mean, you can also just not challenge anything and just go straight for their face sometimes. And if you're able to get that off and buff her attack up when they don't have anything in the way, that's going to be a definite pretty good way to get a lot of damage into their face. So I don't think there's any doubt that Diana's the best Nightfall unit that we've seen so far, and she's definitely going to make it into any Nightfall decks that end up happening. Outside of Nightfall decks, you might manage to run enough Nightfall to trigger her level up and sometimes trigger the bonus that you get after she's leveled up. But generally speaking, I think she's going to be stuck in Nightfall heavy archetypes. But I think she will definitely shine in those archetypes and have a huge impact. Then we have Pale Cascade, which is also Diana's champion spell. 2-mana burst spell, give an ally +2/+1 this round, and Nightfall draw 1 card. So this seems freaking insane. This is a decent enough stat bonus as a combat trick. You're just playing it at burst speed. The fact that you can sometimes Nightfall it to draw 1, normally Nightfall it to draw 1, honestly, is crazy, because you're just going to be happy enough being able to swing some combat with it, but getting to cycle it is just so impactful. I think whether you're playing Diana or not, whether you're playing Nightfall or not, this is probably going to make it into a lot of Targon decks. This combined with the other card we saw in the Leona pack of cards, we're just seeing Targon has some great cheap draw cards, and this looks really exciting to like continue forward with that kind of idea. So I think this is going to make into all kinds of Targon decks. I think it's freaking amazing, and you're definitely going to see a lot of it. Then we have Hush, which is a 3-mana burst spell. Silence a unit this round and create a fleeting Hush in hand. So this isn't a permanent silence, but it does let you repeat it somewhat similarly to the Noxian Guillotine in Noxus or the Champion spell for Vi. I think the silencing ability is sometimes going to be able to counter some of the combat tricks that your opponent uses and be able to swing some combat in that way. But generally speaking, I think that 3 mana is a bit much for this kind of thing. The idea that you will have enough mana to spend on all this, in most cases you're going to use this in a situation where your opponent and you are having minion combat, and that means that you're going to hopefully have quite a bit of a board going for you to really get something out of it. But at the same time, it's normally expected to be used when you have a lot of mana sitting around, especially when you have spell mana sitting around. So I guess if your opponent does open attack you, you normally do just have all of your mana still. But I think it's hard to really evaluate this card. Like, it's hard to really see where you're going to be seeing it a lot. I think it's just quite costly, and that kind of a card is normally going to be played in much slower decks, but I think it benefits a lot more from much faster decks, or at least more mid-range decks. So maybe we'll be able to fit it somewhere, but I think it'll definitely be harder to fit than you might initially think. And I think it might just make more sense. It'll definitely make more sense in certain metas where silencing their unit is going to be more important, when some of their effects are really impactful, and we see a lot of stuff like that in a lot of decks at that time. Overall, I think it's not going to see a ton of play unless there's just really a lot of units that you really need to silence at certain times that have really impactful effects. Outside of that, it's mostly just going to be on the sidelines. Then we have Cygnus the Moon Stalker, 6 mana, 4/2 Nightfall. Give me and an ally elusive this round. So this looks really awkward to me. It's A, 6 mana, B, Nightfall, and C, its stats are not great. The 2 health especially is just really rough. The fact that you'd spend 6 mana to potentially just have it get Mystic Shotted, and then you're like, why didn't I just run Ghost? I mean, you might not be paired with Ionia, so that might be a reason to be forced to play something like this, just because you don't have access to elusive otherwise. And this could certainly be a finisher if it doesn't get screwed over. But I think in a lot of cases it's just like really hard to get off. You have to play something first to make it happen. It's going to come in late. And then if they shut you down, you wasted so much mana, you wasted so much time, and you put yourself way too far behind. It might line up sometimes, but I think it's not going to be worth the expectation of that happening for you to be putting it in your deck. So this is another one of those underwhelming Nightfall cards. I think a lot of the Nightfall cards have been underwhelming, but we have seen at least a few of them that definitely excite me. This is not one of them. Then we have Lunari Duskbringer, 1 mana 2/1. When I'm summoned, create a Dusk Petal Dust in hand. And a Dusk Petal Dust, man, say that 10 times fast. It's a 1 mana burst spell, and the next unit with Nightfall you play this round costs 1 less. So it's obvious that you just play this guy on 1, or potentially you're playing it later and triggering Nightfalls with it, because it is a 1-drop, and that is a good upside to having these 1-drops around. But if you do play it on 1, you're getting this Dusk Petal Dust, which is certainly going to be a great way to trigger Nightfall later on in the game. Sometimes it is letting you convert spell mana into summoning mana to some degree, because of the fact that you are spending one spell mana and then you're getting your discount on them. In some cases that's not going to be true. You won't have any spell mana to spend, and it'll just effectively be a Nightfall triggering effect and do nothing else at all. And that's fine though. I think having this to make sure that your Nightfalls do trigger and are easy to get off is just really strong. I think it's definitely going to make it into every Nightfall deck. Is just so good. Then we have Lunari Stalker, 2 mana, 2/3, Nightfall, grant me elusive. So an elusive 2/3 for 2 mana is great. If you can trigger it on turn 2, that's definitely what you're going to want to be doing. Not necessarily possible in every game state, or even most game states potentially. Definitely, well, you can do it if you have the Duskbringer on 1. But otherwise, yeah, like, it's not always going to happen on 2. And even if it does, it's just 1 elusive. It's just 2 attack. You're not going to be so annoying with just a 2/3 elusive that your opponent can't make it through that situation. They're going to find some way to remove it at some point. But the fact that you do get an elusive in these Nightfall decks for not too much trouble, you just have to trigger the Nightfall, is really good. It can end up being quite a bit of free damage over a few attacks. Like, you could get 4 damage if it gets to attack twice, and 4 damage is 1/5 of the Nexus health. So I think it looks quite good. I think it's definitely a very solid inclusion in Nightfall decks. I don't think it's anything crazy, but I think it's definitely very solid. Then we have our Crescent Guardian, 3 mana, 3/3 with Overwhelm and Nightfall, grant me +2 attack. So this is 1 more stat than the Iron Ballista in Noxus if you do trigger the Nightfall. And I think a 3 mana 5/3 Overwhelm seems very good for putting out some damage. We're definitely like showing that Nightfall is seemingly trying to be quite aggressive in a lot of these cases. So this is another really good Nightfall minion, I think. And if you are trying to make your Nightfall deck quite fast, then this is going to be able to put out quite a bit of damage if it's able to overwhelm your opponents and get some of the damage onto their Nexus. It's definitely really going to matter how easily we trigger these Nightfalls, if they're even getting triggered at all when these cards are getting played. But if we can consistently trigger these Nightfalls, I think is going to be a very powerful deck with a lot of very strong singular units that are very good in an aggressive deck. Still iffy about whether Nocturne is a great like capstone to try and end games with in this kind of a archetype. But this guy looks great, and I think it'll definitely make a big impact on these Nightfall decks. The last card we have here is Poro Cannon, which is a Piltover Zon card. So it's a 0 mana burst spell, and to play it you discard 1 and then you create 2 Daring Poros in hand. So it's kind of weird that they threw this in here, but I do kind of see the idea that they're trying to potentially get your mind working with Piltover Zon pairing with Nightfall potentially, because this is a 0 mana spell that you can play before anything else, and then you're certainly triggered and ready to go. And then the Daring Poros can also be used to trigger Nightfall, but whether we're making a Nightfall deck in Piltover Zon is a totally different story, and I'll have to try some theory crafting there. But in terms of discard deck, this looks really good. It gives you discard fodder or you could still play the Daring Poros if you wanted to. And certainly just having Daring Poros is not bad at all in a Von Yip deck. This could work really well with Von Yip or with Lulu. She could buff them up. Maybe you're even running Daring Poros in a Lulu deck without this even being a thing. But I think it looks really strong. I think 0 mana spells in general are going to be really good. And more discard support is really cool to see. I don't see this ever not making it into a deck somewhere. Even if it takes a little bit for people to find the right deck for it to really have a big impact. But I think it'll be a really good card somewhere for sure. And maybe we want to do a Poro deck in Piltover Zon, and then you throw some Poro Cannons in there, and then you'll definitely have more Poros to work with along the way. So I really like it, and the Poro booty is kind of cute. Alright, so that's going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed it. Comment down below what you think of Diana and the other Targon Nightfall cards that we've seen today. And please subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content in the future. Again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.